In a previous video, we learned about Maya's channel box, but it's not the only useful feature along the right side of the user interface. If we go a little lower, we'll see we have an inputs list. This is a list of all of the components that make up our object. For example, right now our polygon sphere is made up of the polysphere1 node. This node tells Maya how many subdivisions, both vertically and along the axis, this object has. I can change this number to something like 50, and you'll see our model gets more subdivisions. If we continue lower, we'll see our layer editor. Layers work differently in Maya than they do in a lot of 2D applications such as Photoshop. In Maya, layers are purely for organizational purposes. So for example, if I had several other objects in my scene, such as a cube and a cylinder and a cone, this is a lot of stuff cluttering up my scene. If I only wanted to focus on my sphere, I could add all of these other objects to their own layer. I can name that layer Other Objects and save it. And now I know that this layer contains all of the other objects. If I click this V, it will toggle the display of everything in that layer. It's important to recognize that this is not changing the visibility of the object. If I have the cylinder selected and I toggle the visibility, you'll see the visibility of the object is still on. The layer is just hidden. If I click the little box right next to the layer's name, you'll see it goes from empty to having the letter T in it. T in this case stands for template. This means that the objects are still visible in wireframe and Maya, but I can't select them. If I click it one more time, it puts them in reference mode. Reference means they look just like any of the other objects, but I can't select them. If I drag select everything, the only thing I'm going to be able to select is the thing that is not in a layer at all. And if I click it one more time until it's empty, then all of the objects are still freely selectable. The P in this middle field just means that the object will be visible during playback. Along the far right-hand side of Maya's user interface, you'll see that we have different tabs for different windows. Currently, we have the channel box and layer editor window open. If we go a little lower and click the modeling toolkit, it'll open a whole different window. The modeling toolkit is a collection of several commonly used modeling tools that you'll use when creating more complex models. If we go a little lower, we'll see the attribute editor. The attribute editor is where you'll find all of the different components that go into making our object. If I select my pSphere1, you'll see that this object is made of the pSphere1 node, where I can adjust my translates, rotates, and scales. The pSphere shape1 node, where I can adjust how the object shows up on screen. The polysphere1 node, which we edited earlier. An initial shading group, and our material node, where I can change the color of our object. Notice that all of the objects change because they're all sharing the same Lambert1 material. We can use these tabs to switch in and out of different windows, but we can also use some of the tabs along the top of Maya's user interface as well. For instance, if I click the first tab, the furthest to the right, it's going to open up our channel box. If I click one over, it opens up our tool settings. This menu can be mounted anywhere you would like, or it can be free floating. This will give us information about the tool we are currently using, which in this case is the Move tool. If I click this button, it will hide that menu again. The next button over is the attribute editor. The next button over is the character controls. This is a series of tools you can use for creating character rigs. And the next tool over is our modeling toolkit again. As you can see, the right side of the user interface contains a lot of information about how to change our object and interact with it.